Hi, I'm Chelsea Clark with Guitars and Caffeine located in Los Angeles, California. And today I'd like to show you one of the coolest instruments that I've gotten in my shop so far. This is a Gibson harp guitar. You're not going to see a lot of them. This is the guitar part, and this is the harp part. This is just gorgeous. Check out this hand-rubbed burst. I mean, it's really outstanding. Now these were manufactured starting in 1902 and they discontinued in the 30s. Now the tailpiece connected all the strings, and originally the harp guitars had the same bridge for the harp and the guitar, which made it a little tricky to intonate and probably a little harder for the guitar to be played. So in the early 1920s, Gibson patented a dual bridge with a slight taper that allowed for it to fit the contour of the harp guitar top and allowed for you to adjust the string height of the guitar. Now the funny thing about this in particular harp guitar is the batch number and the serial number actually indicate that it's from probably 1917, 1918. And like I said, the double bridge wasn't introduced until the early 1920s. So this is probably one of those in-between models where they were just introducing them maybe 1920. One of the things that kind of blew my mind when I shared a photo of this with my friend Dan Erlewine was the fact that he actually has a harp guitar in his shop as well. This is a U style, which means it has 10 strings on the harp side. So I think that we should call him and see what he's up to. Maybe he can tell us a little bit more about this harp guitar, because I know he's been doing some research about his own.
Chelsea!
Hey Dan!
Hi!
Hi!
What's up?
I'm actually shooting a trade secret video today in my shop using that harp guitar we were talking about last week.
What does yours have?
The harp side has 10.
This one has 12.
No way!
This has 12 on it. They're the same though, really.
Yeah?
I think yours needs more work with all the jewelry you told me about and a lot of painting. Is that what you're doing today?
Yeah, I'm going to show people a texturing technique for that lacquer.
Good luck and keep me posted.
I will. Thanks so much.
Pizza
Talk to you
love.
later. Peace. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about the original owner of this harp guitar. He was a jeweler by day and a musician at night, and inlaid a bunch of these little jewels and metal balls into the headstock, just like this. You'll be able to see the scars all throughout the headstock where the holes were drilled, and it's pretty clumsy. So the first thing I noticed after I removed the jewels is a lot of epoxy buildup and resin in these kind of handmade holes. So I knew that I had to hand make the plugs. Take this little chunk of mahogany that I have and cut it down to size really quick with my nippers, right? So what I'm doing right now is I am sanding this little plug on a slab of marble that has a variety of sticky back sandpaper. I think it comes in like 200 grit all the way up to 800. I love the sticky back stuff. Once I am ready to put the plug in, I'll make sure that that wood's clean on the bottom, put a little dab of wood glue in there, line up the grain using a clamp. I just gently clamp that plug right in and I leave it overnight and I walk away. So the next step would be to take a really nicely sharpened chisel and just pare that nice and flat. Now, as you probably noticed, the harp headstock is a natural finish, whereas the guitar headstock has a black finish on it. After trimming this plug, I've grain filled it and then stained that plug black so that it would match the rest of the headstock, and then put a thin sealer coat of lacquer on it. I've let that dry, and now I'm going to come back with a thickened lacquer. In order to thicken the lacquer, I left this lid off for 24 hours. It's now the viscosity of warm honey. Anything thinner and it's going to be way too shiny to match the patina of this 100-year-old instrument. Once I apply this, I want to make sure there's just enough texture to blend into the vintage story that this instrument has to offer. So using a natural bristle brush to avoid any kind of air bubbles, I'm just going to paint this I'm just going to paint this lacquer on. And it kind of looks like a pool of lacquer right now, but I'm going to let it breathe just for a few minutes while it tacks up the top coat. And then I'll come back with my texturing tools to apply some ridges. You see these textures right here? This is from 100 years of life. I want to stay true to that. So that's why we're applying some texture, because I don't want to overspray. So to blend in this repair, it needs to be a little bit more bumpy than smooth. So sometimes when I'm drop filling a small area, I'll use my finger, the tip of my finger, just to kind of rough up that texture, right? But I don't ever use that when there's a lot of solvents involved. Your skin can absorb some of the solvents and it's just not worth it. I also have made this cool little texturing tool. And I've written on the side of it what texture I'm going to get from each side. I've poked a few holes in it using a thumbtack. You're going to get more ridges from the ingrain. Then you can run one side over 80 to 100 grit sandpaper and score it, and you're going to get kind of wavy look. And then the other side's fairly smooth. As you can see, we're getting nice texture with this. Really liking what I see. There we go. I'm going to switch over. Let's see what the wave does. Now, if you find that you get too much texture, which is totally possible, happens to me, you can always grab a piece of wax paper and just rub it through. Or you can use the smooth end of your block to flatten it out. So that's how you texture fresh lacquer to match 100-year-old lacquer. Now you can use a variety of tools from around your shop as texture tools. Like I said, this wooden shim works great. You can even use a handle of something like these pliers. The ridges are going to be deep, but it might be appropriate for some repairs. This micro chisel end, not the sharp part, the other end. I really like this ingrain on the micro chisel, and I think I'll probably use it for the rest of the plugs. Have fun finding texturing tools around your shop. Just make sure to avoid anything that might have lint, soaps, or dyes in it. So anything that's paper and fabric is going to embed lint into your fresh lacquer, and you're going to have to pick it out. Some sponges contain soaps or solvents and dyes that will end up maybe embedding into your lacquer and not allowing it to dry. Same as cork. So just avoid all those things. Now I'm going to let this dry for about 24 hours, come back to it, and maybe edit a few things here and there. But most of the work is pretty much done. This really turned out great. With a little bit of knowledge and some practice, your finished touch-ups can be just as good. I'll see you guys next time.